I think if we're able to build these capabilities in the UK, we'll not only create the capabilities that we need to defend ourselves, but we're also going to realise growth, and then of course jobs through export as well.
The government's long-awaited defence investment plan will finally be published this morning. You'll be able to hear Sir Keir Starmer announce the details at around 10:30 here on Times Radio. The Prime Minister will unveil an additional £15 billion for defence over the next 4 years. The Times has been told it includes a one-off £2 billion increase in day-to-day funding this year to help cover the cost of operations and training. That was, of course, a key concern for defence chiefs and led John Healey, the Defence Secretary, to resign. However, no date will be given for increasing defence spending to 3% of national income, up from 2.4% at present. Well, Ned Baker is the UK Managing Director of Helsing Defence, which is Europe's largest defence technology company, and has already been involved in the manufacture of drones used in Ukraine. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks very much for joining us. We know part of this defence investment plan will involve new funding for drones. So where is the UK at the moment in terms of investment and manufacturing of drones?
So I think the UK is actually doing a very good job of leading the way. We've seen quite a big shift in recent years of private capital flowing into defence as a sector, which wasn't really seen in previous years. And there's a number of different companies, and Helsing is at the forefront of them, that is putting this private capital to work, investing in infrastructure, investing in people and capabilities, setting up factories here in the UK, and making sure that we are ready for when the government needs us to start building these new technologies.
And will the kind of funding that we're talking about here in this defence investment plan make a tangible difference?
I think that people have become quite fixated on just the top level numbers. And look, I would, of course, as you'd expect, always advocate for greater investment in this area. But I'm also under no illusions that these are really difficult decisions and trade-offs that the government has to make. And I'm convinced that the MOD has done absolutely everything it can to secure the best possible settlement that it can. So I think rather than looking at that top level number, we're probably better off looking at what it is being spent on, and then how it is spent. So the execution of that spend, and that's something that I think that the government and industry have to do together. And I think if we can get that right, then I strongly believe that this can be actually genuinely quite transformational. And not just for our armed forces, but actually for our economy as well.
Well, and that's part of what I wanted to ask you about, really, which is, I mean, the reason people focus on the funding is because we don't know the details, and we don't have enough information about how the money will be spent. But in terms of an investment in the UK, in terms of an investment in manufacturing here, what might it mean for, we've heard from Andy Burnham yesterday talking about devolution, talking about regional economies. What might it mean for regional economies if we were to do this properly?
So, I mean, I strongly believe that we can actually use defence investment to drive economic growth and regional growth. I mean, for example, Helsing has attracted a significant amount of really top-tier global talent. We have over 250 people here in the UK. That's partly in London, but we're also partly based in one of the first regional defence growth centres in Plymouth. And so I think if we're able to build these capabilities in the UK, we'll not only create the capabilities that we need to defend ourselves, but we're also going to realise growth, and then, of course, jobs through export as well.
Can I ask you about the ethics when it comes to drones? Because you build both the software and the hardware, so the targeting software and also the drone in terms of the hardware itself. One of the things that we're not really talking about in this country at the moment is the use of drones. If we are going to go in this direction, what's the legality of using drones in a war setting? Are we talking about that enough? Do you think the current laws that we have are adequate for the new situation we might find ourselves in?
I think there's actually been a huge amount of thinking in this area through both academia, but also in government, in the armed services, and indeed in industry. I mean, the industry certainly feels that it has obviously a legal responsibility, but also a moral and an ethical one as well. And actually, whilst the Defence Investment Plan has been delayed for a while, this is actually a shift that that many have thought necessary for a long time. Many have seen coming for a long time. This move to AI, defined capabilities, and increased autonomy was actually laid out in the government strategic defence review of last year. So we've had quite a long time to try and think through a lot of these very, very complex issues. And I think actually the fact that we are now putting funding behind them forces us to have those conversations and make sure that we are operating within the strictest possible ethical and legal guidelines.
But if we're using AI for targeting, how do we guarantee that it's targeting the right thing? And how do we stop it if there's a situation where it's not?
So the technologies that Helsing creates use AI in order to augment and aid human decision-making, but it's not replacing human decision-making or the person in the loop, as we call it, at all. It is merely there as a tool in order to protect that service personnel from harm and allow them to do their jobs effectively. But it is not a total replacement for that person.
Would you rule out developing technology that worked in that way, that was AI based and was allowed to take the decision itself?
I mean, it's a really complex issue, and I think if we talk about it simply in AI that is allowed to target and then operate completely autonomously, it's probably a bit too simplistic. We've had defense capabilities that are pre-programmed before launch, whether that's missiles or the like, for a long time. And again, they operate within very strict guidelines that are agreed upon between industry, between governments. And so I think these are complex issues. I think it's quite hard to boil down to a single yes or no answer.
Well, it's something that we will no doubt be discussing because this is going to be the driving force of the UK's investment plan, as we understand it, and we'll hear more later today. Ned, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is Ned Baker, the UK Managing Director of Helsing Defence.
You've got to have faith here in all of this, haven't you? You've got to have faith that you can trust the Ministry of Defence to procure properly. They've never shown a great ability to do that in the past. And then what they do procure, in the world of AI, there's an awful lot of, it's very complicated, you wouldn't understand. We understand right and wrong. We understand autonomy. We understand checks and balances, human involvement versus machine involvement. I suspect, and this could be wrong, that the people making the decisions about what AI can and can't do have no interest in being scrutinised by people outside of their fields. And the rush for money and the rush for investment means stuff will not get scrutinised. I fundamentally believe that.
Do you?
I really do. I think that the great AI explosion
is just driving people.
I think it's another banking crisis is heading our way, where something becomes so complicated, we can't understand it, so we have to trust that the people responsible are checking it. And that was happening in 2007 with finance. And what was the result? The entire world collapsed.
I suppose that's why, and I understand if people listening to that might think, why are you asking those questions?
I'm so glad you mentioned ethics, because I don't think we ask that at all.
I think it's something that we are not talking about, and we really should be. And it's so interesting, the ethics of the human involvement in drone technology. And this technology it's happening now. It's not something that we need to think about in the future. It's already been developed. It's already being used. It is being utilised on battlefields right now. And if we're going to invest in it, we need to know where we stand as a country here.
Well, the other point that the lesson I suppose we've learned in the last few years, there's no such thing as international law. There's no such thing as a war crime. They don't exist, because if you win the war, you never get prosecuted. If you lose the war, you might end up dead or prosecuted. But that's the real thing that matters. If you win, nothing ever follows. War crimes, generally speaking, will not be prosecuted by against the most powerful, because they control the system by which they're then judged.
I also think that it is up for discussion again, the rules of war and the rules of engagement in a world in which we are talking about, if you just take Ukraine, you're talking about a front line which is now basically controlled by drone warfare.
Yeah.
And it's shifted in just such a short space in that conflict alone. And we need now to take lessons from that, but also to understand where we stand, what we think is acceptable and what we would be prepared to do. And I think in the context of China and Russia, we've really got to think quite hard about that, even though it does hurt the inside of every brain a bit.